somewhere. So you can manipulate the plant to get characteristics that you want. If you're growing this for hemp, if you want to make fiber, you wouldn't want the short bushy plant. You would want the male cannabis sativa plant, let it grow to 10, 12 feet tall, and then harvest the fibers out of that center stem where you get the longest and the thickest fibers. See the images here. It's just going back to psilocybin. I just found this book at Barnes & Noble. I actually have never read it, so I'm reading it right now. Aldous Huxley. When he was taking mescaline to see how it would affect the human mind. Peyote cactus, where you get the mescaline. Examples of ecstasy tablets that were confiscated. They're trying to smuggle it into the country. Ketamine, still used as animal anesthetic, so that you can anesthetize small animals and not have to worry about overdosing them. Some images of phencyclidine. This is the cousin of ketamine. Remember for your exam that phencyclidine you wouldn't find it on a veterinary pharmacy shelf. It's not made anywhere. If you do have access to PCP, it will be made illegally. So it can have all kinds of appearances. This sort of has almost looks like a chunk of crack cocaine here. Here's more white powder. Here's been pressed into pills. Here it looks like it's also a very white powder. Here it's been dissolved into a liquid, and people may add that to a drink or perhaps dip a cigarette. Here they've got some cigarillos here that can be dipped into that liquid and then smoked. This is just an image of Jimson weed. Some teenagers on the East Coast ate some of the part of the seed pod here. They heard that they could get them high. But Jimson weed is related to datura, mandrake root, has those anticholinergic, anticholinergic hallucinogens. All these kids got was very ill, salivation, nausea, ended up in emergency rooms. Here's an image of Salvia divinorum, a member of the sage family. This is what has been used in Mexico, and it's what some people had purchased at, I think, a Planet 9 or something. We get the dry material. Most of the time when you purchase things, you're going to get it in a dry form because it's more stable that way. If you're smuggling something, if you were going to be smuggling something, you don't really need to smuggle this plant. Why would you want to smuggle all that weight in water? You guys got me? Yeah, you're looking at me. No, you're not. Yes, you are. Okay, just a couple more days. You'll never see me again in your life. So just concentrate on me a couple more days, and you'll all better off, and everybody will be happy. Okay. I mean, maybe we'll see me. Do you say hello if you do? I don't mind. This is an image from China. Kind of a weird thing here. This guy is actually manipulating. It's actually a fiber of an ivory. It's got kind of interesting little horns here. But it was on the cover of a book that described how to use cannabis sativa as a medical aid. So thousands of years, people have known that this plant can help with certain disorders. Okay, these are some posters for movies that came out in the 30s. Everyone should at least at some point watch Reefer Madness. It's about a 20-minute film about, and again, these teenagers look like they're in their 50s. Those teenagers. A couple and another one of their male friends smoke some marijuana and then end up in a drug-crazed murder spree, killing people with axes. Here's one where, and this is really what a lot of started out the politicization of marijuana in the 1930s, that it was somehow going to corrupt our, notice, very white daughters, and that she could now go off to smoking a reefer. That's been around for a while, and she will go straight to hell probably because of this. She'll join a cult and become the assistant to the devil. Interesting propaganda films. Okay, this is a picture of typical cannabis sativa. Most people recognize it because of the 5 long, slender leaves. You see it sometimes on patches, or anybody who wants to send a signal that, yes, I'm into marijuana. There's all kinds of ways you can do that. So because this drug went underground, people did have sort of a whole slang developed around it. And with most drugs in our country, I mentioned the term subculture before. When you're a member of a subculture, you you are, perhaps you're a member of the people who smoke marijuana every day. So that doesn't include everybody in the United States. It's the second most frequently cited drug people have used in the past month. But that still leaves a whole bunch of people that have never seen it, heard, tasted it, smelled it, or anything. So when you're part of a subculture, whether it's a music thing, if you're a heavy metal subculture or electronic dance movie subculture, whatever it is, you hang out with people that share your beliefs and behavior. So often if it's an illegal subculture, you have little code words that you can use to identify somebody else that's in that particular group. Now, with the changes that have happened in our society, marijuana certainly is not as underground as it has been. Remember, there's 2 states, Washington and Colorado, where it's been decriminalized. So the drug dogs that they train in those states will no longer alert to the smell of marijuana. So the old drug dogs will still alert if they smell marijuana, because once you train a dog to tell you where something is by smell, you can't really forget it. The new dogs will no longer be searching vehicles in those states focused on the smell of marijuana. So there's big changes there. Some of the things that have happened recently in those states where you have a date, April 20th, 420, at 4:20 in the afternoon, is a long-term tradition for people to all get high together. With the idea that everywhere in the United States and in the world, people are all getting high at 4:20, 4:20. When that would happen, sometimes people would be, of course, very paranoid. Back when it was much more seen as a subversive behavior. Lately, in those couple of states where that occurred, it almost kind of became passé. Yeah, well, we do all the time, so why should we, make a statement on April 20th at 4:20? But I remember that in the 70s, going back to when I was in college. Nothing new there. Okay, so if you're part of the subculture, you want to brag to other people how good you are, and part of that subculture is if you are growing marijuana. So there are people who have grown marijuana for 30 or 40 years. There was recently an interview with some people outside of San Francisco, up in the hills, with a secret little paths, and these people have grown pot for at least 40 years. They have their own variety, and they miss their plants, and they treat them like little pets. There have been people who have gone the indoor route, where they use hydroponic techniques, where the plant is really not in dirt, but the roots are, there's a solution that's whirled around the roots that contain anything the plant needs, any nutrients. The idea being that you really get the plant to produce its characteristics as quickly as possible. Now this is Cannabis indica, mostly indica. This is from the magazine High Times, which is still out there, I think. And it was dedicated to people who were in that subculture that they really like pot, marijuana, and they like get high, which is where that term came from. So this is that skunk weed. This is called super skunk. So this person who produced those whitish areas there are the flowers on this plant that you would want to selectively get those flowering buds and the leaves around them. And that white there is just where you've got a lot of resin that has collected. Sometimes this would be very sticky type, and this would also produce a huge smell. As I mentioned, skunk weed is unfortunately a side effect of some people who cultivated some type of indica. People are going to smell it. If it's in your pocket or something, it's got a pretty distinctive odor. So this people kind of getting contests of how beautiful my pot is versus your pot. In British Columbia, there's been some warehouses in, what's the major city there? Victoria? I think it's a major city in British Columbia. There were some warehouses that were dedicated to growing pot indoors, and it kind of got a reputation of being very potent, which is called BC Bud. So this would be where people would be selling this because it had so much THC. So again, people are trying to get a bigger dose of the drug. So if it were a drug like cocaine or amphetamines or morphine, you would increase the amount of the extracted drug, the powder or whatever you have. Here, you're using the natural plant, but you're still trying to increase the dose, the bang per buck, for how much plant material you're either going to vaporize in a vaporizer or inhale. Some people can mix it into and eat it to consume it that way. How you administer a drug, as you know now, has a big effect on how you feel. So absorbing marijuana orally much different pathway from people smoking it. It's much longer. It's a different kind of onset as the blood levels rise and then the brain levels rise. Sometimes you can actually get a larger dose so that you continue to have rises in blood level even when you might think that you're, as some people would say, I'm high enough right now. Okay? So, of course, an addict, and some people get very compulsive about using marijuana. It's not top of the list in terms of driving people to compulsive use, but there are people that I think are in that vulnerable group who, if they use drugs recreationally, do tend to become very compulsive about it. That means they want to do all the time. They get very tolerant, so they don't feel the effects as much, and they want to keep increasing their dose. So this would be something where if you take the drug orally, as the blood levels keep rising, you can't really turn it off. And that's why people like smoking a drug, because it's like a little micro-injection into the brain. You feel you have enough, you can stop. And so it allows you to have that control versus swallowing a pill or swallowing some plant material. This is a type of, some say, a different species or variety. Not much THC, nobody cares about it. This is Cannabis ruderalis, mainly grows in Siberia, cold climate with short summer months. This is some compressed marijuana that had been confiscated by the Drug Enforcement Agency. So again, you don't want to smuggle wet plant material. It's just adding tons of weight to what you're doing. So the plant is dried and then compressed. So I think I can see here some, looks like maybe some seeds. So this is not a Sensimilla branch, but this would be the branch of the plant. We would want to have maybe a couple, a bud that's there with flower, and that's what's being compressed. So you don't want to have a lot of extraneous parts of the plant. Stems don't have THC. Some of the leaves at the base of the stems don't have THC. So people want to just take what they think has the most THC. This is just a plant grown indoors. People can do this, again, if you don't want to bother. Some people like marijuana, but they hate putting money into the hands of violent drug cartels and smugglers. So if they're going to use drug, they'd rather grow it themselves so they don't have to interact with that part of the society. So here you can see the distinctive leaves. People can grow them indoors, grow lights. They like warm, humid temperatures. So some people have been busted for growing indoor marijuana plants because helicopters fly over with FLIR. FLIR is the heat activating sensor in a camera they use when they're looking for somebody that might be hiding, like that Boston Marathon bomber that was hiding in the backyard. Even if you have some brush over you or something like that, FLIR will show your body heat. So they're flying over these neighborhoods and they see this basement of a house that is just glowing red, meaning that it is much, walls of that basement are much warmer than anything around it. So they're suspicious. They may go and see, at this point, they would say, okay, what's going on here? And in the basement, they might discover a rather complex greenhouse, indoor growing situation that's very warm because it helps plants grow. These contents of THC, I'm not going to ask you about them on the final. Remember, when you talk about percentages, if we were to look back at those buds that I showed you, those dried ones, what this means is if you were to take a portion of that and see what percentage of all the chemicals that are present, what percentage are actually delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, that's what you're doing here. So general marijuana that has seeds, it's not necessarily just the selective flowers, could have out of all that's in that plant material 3.3% THC. Sensimilla, I explained to you, you take out the male plants so that the female plant is not fertilized, she doesn't have seeds, but she has a lot of resin. She's trying to collect pollen to fertilize. The resin has the THC, so you can go up to 6.66. You can concentrate that flowery buds in the hashish, kind of a little brick, 5.69 or above, and here, this is a range. This would be how high you could get. And then you can take the hashish and extract that down to what's called hash oil, a brown sticky substance that a lot of it would be maybe highest amount possible, 40%, average maybe 10% THC. So you can get more and more intoxicated with more and more THC. One thing I should point out is it's not known if THC actually produces a lot of the medical effects. Remember, I explained to you that there's 30 psychoactive compounds that can be isolated from 360 that are in marijuana. So some people have said, I'm not interested in just THC. That's why they don't like the pill Marinol, which can have some synthetic THC in it. They're like, no, I like the plant. So it could be that there's something in this plant, not all related to how intoxicated or high you get, some other compound that's in there that helps with some of the medical problems, such as people suffering from anxiety disorders, muscle disorders, chronic pain disorders. These are some of the things that have been treated. But just giving a pill with one of those compounds doesn't necessarily work. But if you just want to get high, this is what people want. They want the THC. This is another grow lab that people are growing. It looks like pretty sizable. They're concentrating it, they're fertilizing them. It may actually be hydroponic. There may actually just be fluid that they circulate into these buckets to push the plants to grow fast. This is a tunnel that went from Tijuana under the fence into a warehouse district in San Diego. So again, this is what happens when people want drugs, so there's a market, but it is illegal. If there's a market there, people will supply it. So it's kind of ingenious. At one point, this had a little trolley train track in it, and they would push these bales of marijuana through this tunnel, a long tunnel, and then they'd open a trap door in a warehouse in San Diego and pop up. So this is a lot of marijuana coming through these tunnels. Now you can look for tunnels. If you use some seismic readers, you can say, wow, that's a hollow area. What's that? So these people would flood this tunnel with water when they weren't using it. So that if you went looking for a tunnel, it would just look like a sewer line. So this tunnel was there for quite a while. You can see they've got electricity. It's been wired. Some little electricity down there stringing lights. Who knows? Probably the guy, the lowest guy on the echelon, had to do pushing the car through there, hoping that he can get out the other side without being arrested. So what kind of happens, I mentioned on Monday, is that, as happened with prohibition, if too many people break a law, so there's a law, say, from 1920 to 1933, you can't drink alcohol, can't take it across state lines, you can't sell it. If too many people break a law, it begins to be somewhat disruptive for society. Because people, I hear talking, you cannot talk, can't talk. Very, very short time, you're going to listen to me. You can just look at me for now and listen to what I'm saying. Did I ask you guys if any of you improved your listening abilities? Remember the first day I met with you, explaining how people don't listen, they don't look at the speaker and think about what they're saying? Somebody in my class said, my girlfriend freaked out. She goes, you're listening to me. I was just looking at her, thinking about what you were saying. He'd never done that before, apparently. So, there you go. And some people have said it's improved over the course of a semester. So listening is a skill. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So keep working on your listening skills. Okay. All right, so when you have too many people that are breaking a rule, it can become somewhat disruptive. People who enforce a rule begin to be put in a quandary. They know people who are drinking, they may still drink themselves, and yet they're representing the government trying to arrest people who are doing this. Same to be true with the marijuana. There are a lot of people, it's the number 2 drug in our country. People have said they've used in the past month, and it can become disruptive when you have rules that a lot of people see other people breaking. So it's not for the benefit of society when you have that situation, unless you're just going to be a top-down regime, like in North Korea. You can do anything there, okay? You can have flash drives. You can have certain computers there, although people actually are getting flash drives in North Korea. So that is probably going to be the opening. Once people see movies and YouTube and other things, they can't get computers there, but they can get the flash drives there. And there's some illegal radios that broadcast. So that begins to crack society. So what are you guys doing? What are you talking about? You're looking up on your phone, you're looking at your laptop, you're looking at all kinds of stuff. I know, it's the end of the semester, we're all busy. Just look, okay? You guys too? Okay, gotcha. All right. So this is in Amsterdam, where you have people who are, the thing about Amsterdam in the Netherlands is that it's not that marijuana is completely illegal there. You can't to walk out on the street. You have to smoke it in the establishment. And it is supplied by certain branches that are controlled by the government. So it's not freely available. You just can't walk around and say, here, you want to buy some on the street. You go in and you purchase an amount to sell it by gram. And it's somewhat moist. It hasn't gone through that drying process that most people see in the United States. Unless you grow your own marijuana, most people here haven't ever smoked really fresh. It's kind of damp. It's hard light to keep it lighted. So in Amsterdam, you usually mix a little dry tobacco with it. So you buy a gram of that, you buy half a gram, you mix your own. It's called a bogie. And there's a certain way they do it. They don't make a big deal about it. They sit there, have their coffee, and read their paper. Americans really stand out because they're making this big deal up. Inhaling so deeply, wanting to pass it, and they're like, no, I don't want your stuff. Oh, I got my own here. So it was the idea that the coffee shop would be a place where people could have to do it there, and you're going to be taxed on it, things like that. So that was a whole culture there. There's been some problems in Amsterdam. Recently, as you may know, prostitution is also legal in Amsterdam. So the idea is, rather because, again, prostitution is a crime that so many people commit. Let's face it, it's going to be 99% of the men. I don't know if that may, women can buy sex from men too, I guess. You just don't have to, because most guys will drop their pants in a second, right? Girls, you don't have to pay for it, I know that was crude. Okay, so, but men, on the other hand, can get so desperate that they will pay. And plus, prostitution has existed because it doesn't have any ties binding to it. It is a business. So the problems that happened in Amsterdam actually started with the prostitution problem. Criminals from when the Soviet Union broke up, they were able to move around more. So there are lots of young women from Georgia, Uzbekistan, other countries that were quite eager to get to the West. So it's easy to lure them and say, okay, I can get you a job as a waitress in Amsterdam, I can get you a job here, may even end up in Hollywood. These girls are like flocking. Once they get there, the boss takes their passports, he puts them into a certain place where they have to live, and he takes basically they become a pimp for these girls. They tell them, if you tell anybody that I'm bringing this, your mother is dead. And, they threaten them, saying, I'm going to hurt your family. So the girls are so frightened. So that was like a corruption right away of what prostitution was about in Amsterdam. And smoking marijuana. Let's control it. Let's tax it. Let's make everybody's health exams free. Make sure you have any sexually transmitted diseases. And now it's gone over into the marijuana problem. So now people are selling cocaine, amphetamines. I don't know if they have to do the marijuana, but it's gone underground and it's kind of destroyed the system that's there. So you may never get back to this again. What happens when it's out of control like that is that the government no longer gets the benefit of taxes. You can't help people who may have a problem. And so we may have seen the last of these coffee shops in Amsterdam because of this wave of corruption that came through in the past 5 years. And it's just kind of peaking right now. So Berlin also has legal prostitution, and that's also having a big problem. They're being overrun by women who are forced into it, which was the point. You shouldn't have to do that. All right. So if you look at this, the effects of marijuana, if you look just at the effects in terms of mood and emotion, it's all over the place. This is a theme you may have gotten from Chapter 6. These drugs are very much personality and setting and mood dependent. So if you are happy and you're having a good time, it can enhance that. If you're into music, it enhances it. Art enhances it. If you like to dance, it enhances it. If you're anxious, paranoid, afraid, it enhances that. Okay. So that's a big thing about why so many people can get different reactions from these drugs in this chapter. Sometimes, depending on the level of THC, it can be more sedating. Some people call that sleeper pot. Then you can have some marijuana that has the right ratio of THC, and people say, oh, it gets them up to do things. You have a lot of sense of time, detachment, kind of that looking at yourself from the outside, but pretty mild. Talked about increased response to food, bloodshot eyes, can't get around that. It's a side effect actually through the blood vessels. They're special, supplying the sclera, the white coating, clear coating of your eye. They dilate your eyes, get pink. Increased heart rate, that can scare some people. There is before you get tolerant to the effects, there's a pretty linear relationship. The more THC, the more your heart rate goes up. And so if you're already anxious, increased heart rate can make people more scared, and then it kind of accelerates. This is an autonomic effect that most people get tolerant to. They don't notice it if they've been exposed a few times. This is from your notes, impaired tracking ability. What the heck is that? Well, tracking ability is a skill that some people have and some don't. A professional center fielder has exquisite tracking ability. He can predict from the crack of the bat where the ball's going to land, and he just goes. Doesn't think, he just goes. When you're intoxicated with marijuana, your ability to predict where something's going to come down for a trajectory is impaired. So you're not going to be outfielder in baseball and use pot. Now, some people who have no tolerance and happen to get a very high dose can actually experience some types of hallucination. And that's for people who they have their endocannabinoid receptors have not been distorted by frequent use. And these people it's not like seeing things that aren't there, it's more illusions. Where you may see the perspective of a room change. So that corner looks like it's way about half a mile away. Things like that. The things that are there just look different. Sometimes looking at someone's face, their nose looks slightly distorted, those kind of illusions. You can't do multi-step tasks. I talked about short-term memory. No calculus equations here. Now, short-term memory is what you keep in your mind for short periods. I mentioned the country India. This is one of the areas where people have a long history of using ganja, and they're the ones that developed hashish. So there are some ceremonies where you actually use marijuana during this religious, the Hindu ceremony. Now, this person is smoking a chillum. It's just kind of like a ice cream cone with the end off, and you actually use your hands as it inhale the smoke into, and then to smoke it there. This is just looking at people who might be smoking marijuana a lot, and you can see that there's some clearing of, this is cilia. This is what moves phlegm out of your lungs, so that you don't have to cough it up. So marijuana smoke does not contain the carcinogens that cigarette smoke does. But if you inhale hot smoke a lot, just that in and of itself can cause some of the cilia to retract. So you're not getting phlegm out of your lungs as easily. And this is someone who smokes cigarettes and a marijuana smoker. That's the road back. But until you do, you have to clear it out of your lung by coughing. You call it like smoker's cough, because you can't, it doesn't come up automatically. Again, some dated information here. There is a study that's done, I think it began before 1992, where they interview high school seniors every year. So they've done it for about at least 20 years now, and they can predict trends. So they might ask them, have you used this drug last month? Have you ever used it? And so these are 12th graders, their data going from 1992 to 2006, 10th graders and 8th graders. You can see here little things, little blips. 1995 or 95 and a half, a big increase for 8th graders and 10th graders. So you might ask what was happening in the culture that might have affected that. Sometimes it's something like a well-known celebrity talking about smoking because these kids really want to be like people who are cool, or it might be a movie that came out. Those kinds of things can actually affect how many high school students may do it. I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying they tend to follow a trend. Sometimes they can predict a trend before you see it in the general population because they're doing the latest stuff. All right, this is related to your analysis I talked about, where people are so freaked out they'll detect the metabolites for months and months and months. Okay, well let's look at blood levels first. Anytime you smoke a drug, it goes up so fast you can't see it, it just peaks here. Immediately, if you stop putting the drug in, it's going to start dropping the blood. So it's dropping, and you see here about this day 20, okay? This is in the blood. As it's dropping the blood, it starts showing up in the urine. Okay. So remember, there is a cutoff to how sensitive the tests are. So in general, if you have not have any, don't have a lot of metabolites, it's the first time or maybe once every couple months, this is going to drop quickly, this is going to rise, but pretty quickly here, this would be moved over a little bit because you're getting rid of it pretty fast, and you would be below a detection level within 2 or 3 days. The people who have to worry are people who have chronic everyday use, they're going to, even as it drops in their blood and it's showing up in their urine, they're going to have metabolites coming out of the fat of their body because they've got a buildup. And that may then taper off, might take a month. But still, you would be below the normal detection level for most immunoassays, unless you're an Olympic athlete. You get down pretty low for them. All right, this certainly played a role in why states now have voted that marijuana should be decriminalized because people were saying it did benefit them medically. You can't sleep, some people say it helps there. Calm anxiety. Treat venereal disease, that was an old treatment. Kind of like, okay, no, you won't be doing that today. People said calm the cough. This is historically. Spasms, childbirth pain, migraine headaches, glaucoma. There's better drugs to do that now. Pain and nausea is still the main treatment. Pain and nausea, and to induce weight gain, you eat even though you may have chemotherapy. So here, these ideas of this childbirth actually relates back to muscle cramping that it can help, and menstrual cramps. Okay, so this, remember I talked about Marinol as being used to help people eat? Well, it's not just people suffering from chemo that can't eat, they get nauseous when they smell food. If you have a wasting disease, like you're going from HIV positive to actually being diagnosed with AIDS, which means you have to meet certain criteria, you can't eat. Because part of what the virus does is it affects cells in your intestines, and you just get sick whenever you try and eat. So you have anorexia. And this drug, in here is where you are, this is the kill. Actually, this one is not THC, it's dronabinol. It's a synthetic type of THC. Swallow it, and now they say you can eat. If you can't eat, you're going downhill even faster. So Marinol is still used. A lot of people still like the plant. All right. Let's go ahead here and get you ready. Just want to show you real quickly here. Well, I'm not going to show you that. I'll just do it. Okay. I'm going to get you ready to ask a question. Your last question is going to be on Friday. And so what I just showed you is just some images about things that I've gone over in the notes with you. So I haven't quite finished the marijuana notes, but we're getting very close. So when I talked about marijuana to you, I talked about how people are finally able to isolate the receptors that are stimulated by THC and where they're located in the brain. I haven't really talked about it today, but I'm going to ask you about that. It will be a question on your final. I'll explain it to you. And on Friday, our last extra clicker session, I'm going to show you a little video and then ask you a question based on that. Okay, I'm going to open it up right now. All right, so this is your question. People discovered that there were, they call it the CB1 receptor. There's receptors in your brain, there's the delta non-tetrahydrocannabinol, and cannabis binds to and gets you intoxicated. So there's three parts of your brain that have a lot of CB1 receptors. There's the hippocampus that I studied, the amygdala, and the hypothalamus. So those three brain structures control three different types of behavior. Which of these structures regulates the appeal of the sight, scent, and taste of food? This is why people get the munchies when they use marijuana. These receptors are stimulated, the CB1 receptors are stimulated in this part of the brain. So now food seems much more interesting to you. It's the basis of that slide. They give people AIDS or undergoing chemotherapy marijuana. So you want people to eat. So what part of the brain regulates appetite like this? Is the hippocampus, the amygdala, the hypothalamus, or all of these brain regions regulate eating behaviors? So you got to know those three brain regions that have the high density why you intoxicated, when you smoke marijuana, and it controls 3 different behaviors. So we've got votes coming in. We've got 118 right now. And I will shut down after a couple of minutes. I'm going to be working today to get those extra credit points out to you. They're not there yet. So if you can ask me about that, not there yet. I'm working on that. All right, we're coming up in a minute and 3/4, so vote. We're going to shut it down at 2 minutes. All right, have you all voted? Let's go ahead and shut it down. We have 134 votes at this moment. Everybody done? 135. I don't want to start picking up people from another class. I did that the other day. We're going to stop here. Okay, the answer is C. 43% of you got it right. It is the hypothalamus. It regulates, monitors your blood glucose. It's how you make you hungry. It sends signals up to your brain to notice food. That's why you eat. So the hypothalamus. Hippocampus, short-term memory. Amygdala is novelty. How different and unusual things look in your environment. All right, on Friday, I will go ahead and show you a video on hallucinogens and ask you a question based on that video. And then next week, I will finish up everything in chapter 6, do a review for the final, and that's in good shape. So your 3 points extra credit are not there yet. Right, that doesn't happen. Quizzes are open until 27 and 11:59. Now, apparently, I don't know if it's class, I goofed up and didn't open chapter 2, quiz 2, but it's open now. If you try to open that, it didn't work. Oh, you know what? I haven't really been downloading it because, and not today, I didn't use my microphone. So, they're people call. But I would say, so you missed today's Wednesday, you Friday. Okay, one thing I know that just trying to finish up is right out the notes, the cyclidine and salvia norm. Just started our work. Now, Friday, we were talking about anticholinergics. So, if you in your notes to see those, I don't really have to do the recordings now. They have some else in the back of it, but normally the whole I would say, Dr. Arnold, put the mic on. You know, I need to realize we have it on today. So that you can't hear me. I don't have a video right now. I'm going to try to increase the volume. Okay? So check your notes and read this here if you can. Okay? I'll show you right where I got. Okay. I'm going to let it clear. Oh, okay. Maybe you can do it. Yeah. I'll check. I can tell if anybody in this class has it. This is the second one. Yeah, I didn't. If I ever did my phone, somebody raise your hand. Nobody or something. I didn't realize I didn't have on. So what are you asking me about that?
Well, I can hear exactly something about like something with isolated certain drug.
Yeah, you know, I tried to stomp that down, but it didn't work very well. I need to do more lesson on that. If you want to kind of signal me a little bit, like, God damn, dog, that guy, I will back. It just stops. Because today, I'm looking at him and he's like, more. That kind of middle actor or something wrong. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I was trying to stop talking. Okay.
Yeah, but I can repeat what you said.
Okay, so now that I'm this was a pretty lengthy lecture. It wasn't any questions. Okay. Oh. Well, actually, yes. You do need to know that the 3 brain areas, hippocampus, amygdala, hypothalamus, what they do, that's what the TV1 receptors are. So that you can know if I said, well, why do people have changes in novelty when they get intoxicated? And that's the amygdala. Short-term memory is the hippocampus. So basically, it was related to maybe that question there where I was saying, okay, I haven't talked about it yet. I couldn't remember if I went over with you the CD1 receptors and the different brain readings. But look at that question, see if you got them all, you'll see those right in the notes. And in terms of things being isolated, or distracted,
That's something I figured out. How you were showing something like a video or something.
well, on Friday I'm gonna show a video, and then you have a question based on the video.
Okay.
There you go. So Friday that'll be the last clicker, but you'll actually watch the video and then ask a question from something that was done in the video.
Okay.
There you go. Hi.
I forgot mine.
Okay. Go ahead, guys. Fill out the date, your section, and everything. Okay. You're all on here.
All right, well, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Well, what I need you to do, you have a pen available real quick. I need you to write your name so that you can remind me on that, because I guess I was kind of like, well, I don't know which one. I have to find which was it. So there's your name next here, and if you know, like, 4 or 5 days. What was that related to? Okay. Right, yeah. Would be, last week would be Monday, and actually everybody got it on their 2 points, because, yeah, because on Monday, on the 7th, the software failed. So there were times you probably got those points too, if you can remember the dates, or like last week, Monday, so I have an idea of where you're.
I just know it's from month to February.
So this would be, so I'm assuming you're talking about the month of April.
Yes.
Okay. Now, and can you write that additionally, Fridays in April, your name, today's date, and also it would be the week starting, let's see, yes, this Monday was the 20th, 21st, so that would be the week of the Monday from like the 12th to the 13th would be when you missed all week then. I can check and see if you probably already got some points. Because I just did it because the software failed twice, and then I was sick. Your name, you're in 1033-001. And if you put down church retreat, something like that, so I have an idea. Okay, all right, now take a look and see what the points are, what you made. I think that might be yours.